Well, good morning, everyone. I have a question for you, boys and girls. I'd like you to imagine something with me. Imagine, boys and girls, you're in your house and you're playing with one of your toys, and one of your brothers and sisters comes up and says, "Give it to me," and they start playing with it. And you start fighting back. "No, I had it first. No, I had it first." And then your mom and dad says, "What you're yelling about?" And your brother or sister says, "I was playing with a toy and they stole it from me, and that wasn't right." How would that make you feel, boys and girls? How would you make that feel? Yes? Sad. Why would it make you sad? They took the toy without asking? Why else would that make you sad? Anyone? Yes?
It could also make you sad, but it's because they put the blame on you.
They put the blame on you. That's right. Yes? That's right. Maybe they should go in time out. That's right. And they shouldn't do that. That's right. So first and foremost, it doesn't make us feel good when someone steals our toy and then lies about it. That doesn't make us feel good. And second, it goes to that question, what should we do about it? What should we do about it? If someone were to do that, what should we do about it? Who can tell me? Someone steals your toy and says, "They took it out of my hands," and that's not true. What should we do about it? Who can tell me? Anyone? Yes? Just said, "I had it first." That's right. You can talk to your mom or dad and tell the truth, like, "I had it first." That's important. What else could we do? Yes?
Try to convince your mom and dad.
Try to convince them just to speak the truth. That's right. So it's not just we have to do nothing. We can do something. And here's the next question. Even if they did that to us, here's the question. Are we still called to love and be kind to them? Who someone stole something out of our hand, are we still called to love them and be kind to them? You're right. Okay, second question, boys and girls. Let's say you're on the playground, or let's say you're outside playing with some friends, and some people are mean to you, and maybe they call you names, or they push you around, and maybe they do that, and how does that make me feel if something like that were to happen? Yes? That's right, on the playground. That's right. Yes? How would that make us feel? How would that make us feel if someone did that? Yes? It would make you kind of sad. Yes? What's that? That's right. It would kind of hurt you. That's right. Exactly. So sometimes we don't like it. That doesn't make us feel good if someone calls us names or pushes us around. How does that make us feel? And so what should we do? If that happened on the playground, what should we do in those cases? What should we do? Who can tell me? What should we do? Yes? Tell the teacher. That's right. We can do something about it. We don't have to do nothing. We can do something. Yes? What should we do? Anyone else? Yes? Sometimes you can walk away. You can go to another playground in some places, right? If you're in a park, you can go to another place. So it's not like we do nothing. Yes?
I can go to the big playground.
The big playground might be a better playground. That's right. We can go to another place and get out of the situation. So we don't have to do nothing. We can do something. But are we still called to be kind to them and to love them? Who can tell me? Yes? Why? Why are we called to be kind to them? Even though they were mean to us or took our toy or called us names, why are we called to still be kind to them?
Because we don't want to be mean and we want to be helpful.
That's right. We don't want to be mean and we want to be helpful. Yes, Mary?
We don't want God to be sad.
Don't want God to be sad. That's a good thing. Not let God to be sad. And that's the mystery. You see, Jesus reminds us, can you imagine if someone stole our toy and we stole their toy back and then they stole our toy again? It would just keep going and going and going. Not too long ago, I saw something that was talking about dealing with gang violence. And they were talking about, well, can we make peace? Is there a way? And they're like, no, it doesn't matter. This has been going on for 20 years and we're going to keep going. And they're like, when does it end? They're like, it doesn't matter. They did this to us. Remember thinking, that never ends. That never ends. But Jesus came to ultimately teach us something different. That never ends. Boys and girls, have you ever heard the story of Cinderella?
Yes.
Remember the story of Cinderella? Anybody know just a little bit of what the story is about? Yes?
It's about a princess whose mom passed away and her dad remarried again, and this time the mom had had two daughters just as evil as herself, and they treated Cinderella as a servant.
That's right, she treated her as a servant. So it was someone who was very special, and the mom died. In the movie version, there's something very beautiful. And her mom always taught her a very special thing. It says, always remember, have courage and be kind. Always remember this your whole life long. Have courage and be kind. And so what happens is, now the dad married remarried someone else, and she is not very nice at all. And she's mean to her, and the stepsisters, they're mean to her, and there's a prince that comes in town that's looking for true love, and the whole mystery of this. And at the end of the story, after this whole kind of mean things, spoiler alert, this is a little bit of the end of the movie. But at the end of the movie, after wicked stepmother who was so mean to her the whole time, and everything goes good for Cinderella, and the wicked stepmother comes down the stairs and is like, what is she going to do? What is she going to say to that woman who was mean to her that whole life long? And this is what she says. I forgive you. Ooh, I forgive you. You mean after all that stuff? I forgive you. She remembered what her mom told her. Have courage and ultimately be kind. And that's the lesson. You see, God is a just God. It's not like he's indifferent to things when people are mean to us. It's not like he doesn't care. He does care. We should very often tell people, tell our parents, tell our teachers. We should tell people, right? There's a just thing, and some people might need to be put in timeout. And we have adult timeouts that sometimes last a little bit longer. So there is this, God is not indifferent to injustice. God is not indifferent to justice. We do have adult timeouts for people who have done really bad things, hurtful things, and so forth. We're not called to be indifferent to it, but you and I know we're called to live differently. Boys and girls, in the first reading, it was the famous story of King Saul and David. Now, David was this very kind of like rising star, and King Saul got jealous of him. They're like, everyone's talking about David, and I want to kill him. He wanted to kill him. He wanted to get rid of him. And so David has an army of 3,000 people, like, we're going to go catch up with David, and we're going to go. They wanted to take his life, and David had 600 soldiers. So they're running, and Saul goes to sleep one night. And David and a few of the soldiers sneak into the camp. And when they sneak in the camp, there's Saul just he's laying down, and they're like, he's asleep. And one of the soldiers like, I can get him now. I can get him back now. And David says, no, he's God's anointed. We can't do it. But let's take his spear that's near his head. Let's take his jug of water. And then they later go and say, Saul, Saul, guess what I have? I have your spear. In other words, I could have gotten back with you. I could have even taken your life, but I didn't. You see, David could have gotten back, but he wasn't about revenge. He says that in a man of God, I need to ultimately live differently. And who can tell me what they did to Jesus? Who can tell me what they did to Jesus? Anybody know what they did to Jesus? Here he was preaching, he was healing people. What did they do to Jesus, yes? Did they just try to kill him, or did they actually do it? Yeah, they tried to. What else did they do? They actually killed him. Everybody, boys and girls, do you see that up there? So literally, like, what did Jesus do? He healed people, he did miracles, he preached, and literally, yes? And on Easter morning, he came back to life. That's right. How beautiful it was. But he did something very, very special when he was on the cross. He actually prayed for them. He prayed for them. Can you believe it? After all they did to him, he prayed for them. And you know what his prayer was on the cross? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Boys and girls, can you please repeat after me? Ready? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Can everybody help me pray this prayer? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. For they truly knew that they were crucifying God himself and the Savior. They may have never done that. And you and I know that we have to actually pray like Jesus. When people are mean to us, when people hurt us, we're called to pray that prayer. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Boys and girls, can I tell you a few stories? There's a story of St. Philip Neary. And St. Philip Neary, he was a priest in Rome, Italy. And he would go to celebrate Mass in Rome, Italy. But the people who were like setting up for Mass, they didn't like Philip Neary, and they started doing mean things to him. He would come and he would set up a time to celebrate Mass. He would come there like, oh, sorry, it's booked. You can't do it today. And he's like, I just walked across town. They're like, sorry, it's booked. And he says, okay, thank you, and walked away. Another time he came, came to celebrate Mass, and they're like, sorry, we don't have a chalice today. No chalice today. And he's like, you don't have a chalice? No, we don't have a chalice today. And he's like, okay, thank you. I'll come back tomorrow. And they kept doing mean things all year, like something that came up. Sorry, we can't do this. Sorry, we do that. And he was always kind to them. And he was always sincere. And he gave them the benefit of the doubt, even though he knew that they weren't telling the truth. Well, by the end of the year, they finally realized, why do we keep being mean to him? He's been kind to us all along. And they changed. Both of them changed and says, we're sorry for what we did for you all year. Why? Because he loved them with kindness. He loved them with kindness, even though they didn't deserve it. Boys and girls, St. Isaac Jogues, that statue in the back, Isaac Jogues was known for his kindness even to those who weren't kind to him. The story of St. Isaac Jogues is, here he was living peacefully amongst the Hurons, the Native Americans, living peacefully, and one of the warring tribes came and captured him. They literally tortured him for a long, long time. He became a slave for a whole year. He experienced a very miserable time. He escaped to France, and then he came back because I want to live with the people. I want to love the people, and I'm willing to forgive them. And even when he came back, he was actually helping a bunch of the Iroquois, the Algonquins, and the Hurons all to have a peace treaty. They were part of a peace treaty, and he was on a peacekeeping mission when he was captured again. And they weren't sure what they were going to do. They were like, do we let him go or do we take his life? And they ultimately, all the elders of the tribe said, we're going to let him go, except for one young native. In the process of when they were making the decision, he had him tomahawked. He walked in and tomahawked. He's like, we need to get him back because he's the reason we have bad luck. He's the reason we have bad luck. And so Isaac Jogues became this witness of, even though they were very hurtful to me, even though I've suffered a lot from them, I forgive them and I'm going to love them. Boys and girls, there was someone in our parish, her name is E.M. Forbes. E.M. Forbes, and she wrote a book. She gave me the book. It's called Love Your Neighbor, Why? And I remember thinking it was an interesting story. You see, she has a neighbor who was an elderly neighbor, and they would always meet in the mailbox. And she started helping the neighbor out, but this neighbor was not very happy at all. And she was kind of mean. And so they would help the neighbor, and she's like, you're not doing it right. You're not even helpful. And they're like, why am I even helping you? Why am I even helping you? And they're like, we want to help you. And she was never happy with things, but they were like, wow, well, I don't want to help you anyway. But things kept happening, like, I kind of need help, but I don't want help. She was mean. She was sometimes nasty. She was very ungrateful. But it happened over these next 14 months. They kept kind of helping her anyway. Why? Because that's what Jesus would do. It turned out, in the last couple months of her life, she kind of finally said thank you. And she experienced this love and kindness. And who knows what the backstory was. But it was because they kept loving without feeling love back that they imitated Jesus. Love Your Neighbor, Why? It's a beautiful book. It's about 88 pages. 88 pages. A quick read and hysterical in the story. But I'm here to tell you, she loved her neighbor not because she got anything back from it, but she loved her neighbor because Jesus wanted us to love those anyway. Last story, boys and girls, last story. There's the famous of more and more people said, if that's what Jesus did, that's what I'm going to do back. And so there's the famous story of the very first martyr. His name is Stephen. And St. Stephen was telling people about Jesus, and they're like, stop talking about Jesus. And they said, and basically, he's going back and forth, and they decided basically he was martyred. He was stoned to death. It was a very gruesome. But while he was being stoned to death in the Acts of the Apostles, it tells the story of Stephen praying for them. And what's Stephen's words when he's praying for them? He says these words, Lord, do not hold this sin against them. What? They're doing bad things to you? Lord, do not hold this sin against them. And do you know who was around at the same time? There was a man named Saul, who later became Paul the Apostle. And it was interesting because here, after they did all these things, he's praying for them. He was doing exactly what Jesus did when he died. And it would be later, just later, that literally Saul would have his conversion. And Saul, who was doing bad things, all of a sudden did a lot of good things. And the rest of his life, he was sorry for everything he did. Why? Because he was given the grace to change. And he didn't deserve it, but he was loved anyway. And part of his conversion happened through the prayers of Stephen, who died. Boys and girls, a number of years ago, I literally asked that question. I was like, boys and girls, like, what happens? Like, Saul would have hated Stephen before. He would have hated him. I said, what would it look like in heaven? I said, where are my artists? Who likes to do art? And I said, is there anybody who could draw a picture of the reunion of Stephen and Paul in heaven? The reunion of Stephen and Paul in heaven. Where are the artists? And I had a 9-year-old girl, her name is Jocelyn, who drew me a little picture of the reunion of Stephen and Paul in heaven. Boys and girls, do you see this little picture? Paul didn't deserve it. He didn't deserve it. He did bad. He did really he was like literally killing Christians, doing the worst of the worst. But Stephen prayed for him. And this is a beautiful drawing of literally Stephen standing there, or Paul is standing there, and Stephen's like running to him. He's like running to him. He's running to him to show him mercy because that he didn't deserve. Because ultimately, he was imitating Jesus. Boys and girls, please repeat after me. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Pray for those who persecute you. Repeat after me. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hurt you. Pray for those who persecute you. Can everybody join me in this? Love your enemies. Do good to those who hurt you. Pray for those who persecute you. And boys and girls, when we do that, we're more and more like Jesus. And people can see Jesus in our kindness and love, not because they deserve it, but because we love like Jesus, even when they don't. Thank you for coming, boys and girls. You can go back to your pews. Thank you, boys and girls. Good job. Thank you.